My name is Mike Seastrom. This is the new caller session in the 2004 CALLERLAB Convention. I want to welcome you all here this morning. I hope you all had a great day yesterday, and I hope you all had a terrific night last night. Most of you probably knew it was a full moon, and most of you know that callers call differently on a full moon. Dancers dance differently on a full moon. If you've ever taught on a full moon, I don't know what it is, but there is something about a full moon. And when you begin teaching, you're going to know that it's a full moon. I don't know what they say that maternity wards in hospitals are more full on a full moon. I know that as a practicing dentist, I have more toothaches on a full moon that should have hurt people months and months ago, and all of a sudden on a full moon. So there's something about it. It's a joy. Go with it. Enjoy it. At times it'll annoy you, but have fun with it. And that was yesterday and last night, and maybe for a couple days before and a couple days after. You never know. So first thing I did when my kids were young was tell them to go outside and howl at the moon. And you always seem to shave more on a full moon too, I think. I don't know. Anyway, this is a new caller seminar. It has absolutely nothing to do with the full moon, except that it gives me great pleasure to introduce my two panelists coming up here. I think that caller education and being involved in caller education is one of the most exciting parts about being a caller, because the one thing that I know for sure, and most of you know for sure, is that you never, ever, ever stop learning things about calling and about dancing and about square dancing in general. This activity has dated back many, many, many years to the colonial times. It is an activity that has evolved with our country. Our dress has evolved with our country as dress has changed over the years. This particular activity, when the caller used to call many, many years ago back in New England, and they were prompting to music. They were just trying to get the dancers to move through the movements. Callers were one in a square. The music was up on stage, and the squares down below. The caller was just in the square itself. With the advent of amplified sound, that whole deal has changed. We now sit on the stage. We are now apart from them. But then we've kind of gone full circle, because now we have headsets, and now we can actually get out there in the middle of our classes and dance, sometimes still in the spot, and dance and call at the same time. The type of equipment we have today is revolutionary. It's so unusual. It's so exciting. It's so much fun. The type of music we have available to us today in square dancing is going to shoot square dancing into a whole new area that is going to fascinate you. And for those of us that have been calling for quite a while, it's kicking and screaming, we're going to go. But the thing is this thing goes by itself. And so enjoy the joy of dancing, enjoy the joy of teaching this dancing, and enjoy the art of calling. It is a lost art. And just as the dance has evolved, calling has evolved. Many, many years ago, when our music was pretty thin and non-existent, the caller called a word with every beat of music. Every time there was a beat of music, we tried to fill it in. Today, with the type of music we have and with the way that we can present our calls, very often we can just be quiet and let the music play, and let the music and the dancer have that relationship to themselves. And when we can do that and guide them through the joy of just dancing and moving to music, there's nothing like it in the world. And that's why this is kind of a neat thing to be involved in. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. Is it frustrating at times? You bet it's frustrating at times. But there are times when this will bring you more joy than you will ever know. It's just a hoot. And it's such an unusual activity. As Jim Hensley said last night, this is the right activity for America right now. We have sat in front of our computer screens and done the phenomenon of cocooning for a long time now. We have gotten to the point where as a society we have a tendency to go home at night and shuffle down and get into our cocoons at home and sit in front of our television sets. But it's happened long enough that people are ready to come out again and to socialize and to be part of a bigger part of humanity. And we're the perfect vehicle to do it. We need new callers. I want each of you as new callers or seasoned callers to make sure that anybody that's out there that you're dancing with that you think would have just a little bit of passion for being able to present calling and try the art of calling, encourage them. Anything that you can do to do that, because we need more callers. We don't have enough callers presently to go around, and that's one of the reasons why in some areas square dancing has declined, because there's not enough callers, cuers, or square dance leaders to make it go. So we need more callers, and you're at the right time if you're a new caller. Our first seminarian this morning, our first panelist this morning. Seminarian, is that the right word to use? Not really? Okay, our first panelist this morning is Bob Jones, and Bob is from Troy, Ohio. He's been calling since 1986. He actually started dancing in 1985, so it didn't take him long for somebody to convince him or con him into calling. And finally, I think head first, he jumped in about 1987, and so he's been involved in caller training. He's been a member of CallerLab for a long time. He's been on the convention board as a liaison for CallerLab. Let's give a nice hand to Mr. Bob Jones. Bob.
He said everything in my seminar I was going to give. Thank you much, Mike. No. Seriously, how many callers we got in here that 1 to 2 years experience? 2, 4, 6. Hey, looking good. How about 2 to 4? 2, 4. 5, 4 to 5? Yeah. We're going to hit all the categories, 6 and up. Oh, good. I'm glad you come, Beth. You rounded out the. We got 2. Well, as Mike stated there, I started in 1986. My wife wanted me to go to lessons, and I didn't want to go. The same old story, you're not going to drag me there. So finally, I decided in 1987 to jump in. I wasn't sure I really wanted to yet, but I finally made the commitment in 1987. And I've had a few heartaches along the way because I just kind of done things my way, No caller schools, no none of this. I just went ahead and jumped in there. I thought this was the way to go, I didn't know where any of this was at, So that's what I mainly want to talk to you about today, the pitfalls that I have ran into in my time. Hopefully this will help you avoid some of the tough times that I went through. I know at times you feel like you got into something that's just driving you totally insane, And some of you might even mastered the art of it. Probably a little better than I have. But there are a lot of them out there just like I was that had to work so hard to keep it going. And it gets so frustrating, and sometimes you just wonder, like Mike says, I'm going to get out of this, and we really need the caller, so I hung in there. But it all came around, and I ended up having a wonderful time. And even after 19 years, guys, I'm still just like you guys, still learning every dance I go to, I learn something, some little thing. And it now becomes so much easier. Some of the lights are turned on. I had an experience with Jim Mayo's first caller school workshop that I went to. He come in, he gave a wonderful seminar, understood everything. The English part of it I understood. I understood what he was saying. But I didn't understand anything about the square dance part of it. Nothing. Not one iota. So 15 years later, I'm at ISDCA in Indiana. They book him for the workshop over there. I get the honor of booking him. So I call him. I tell him who I am. I tell him the experience I went through. And he said, well, I think you'll see it a lot differently when I get there this year. So 15 years later, I went to Jim Mayo. I understood a whole lot more of what he was talking about there, guys. It really helps a bunch. So get out there and get all the education you can get. I got a couple of topics. Anytime you want to jump in here, just raise your hand up. If you hit something, if I highlight on something that you need to field a question, let me know. First thing I would like to talk to you about is establish that you want to commit to learning to be a caller. It takes a terrible time-consuming commitment, as you probably all well know. You want to get, and when you finally make that commitment, get you a couple records that you really like yourself. Do them, know them inside and out. But please don't pick one that Bob Jones does or Mike Seastrom does and try to do it like Mike Seastrom or Bob Jones or Pat. Honey, I'm getting to you. Well, I moved a chair, no, I done it myself. Yeah, and I didn't get no credit for it, Mike. But remember one thing that Hank Williams always said: you can't fake it. You got to live it. You got to have it in your heart. That song, you got to be able to feel it. Now, as time goes on, that you will find that will progress in, that you will be able to do songs that you couldn't do before. I've got a box of them at the house. Probably, we won't go into that. My wife's not here. But no, My protege back there knows my phone number. But and you'll find this as you're going along. You'll buy a record. It sounds good on the tape. It sounds good down here in the thing. You get it home. It just don't work. Don't get rid of it. Throw it back. And I'll guarantee you 5, 10 years down the road, it will work. It will work. So just live it. Live it. And be ready for the guest tips with that record that I'm talking about. Know it. Inside and out. Because you never know when that one guy that intimidates you, when you walk into that dance and you're up there calling, he walks in the back door and you don't know the song and your mind goes blank. Not only does the words of the song go blank, but all the patterns that you have in your mind to fill in, it leaves with you too. Trust me, I have been there, guys. I know. And I sit up there and one guy says, well, now what do we call now? Jones. I go, I don't know. You know, so be prepared. That's the whole thing I'm getting at on that. Another thing, get in a local callers association. Those people are there, believe it or not, to really help you. Sometimes you might not think it. You know, you walk in there, you see this guy, gosh, I wish I could call like him. Let him intimidate you. It's going to happen. You cannot stop it. This gentleman here intimidates me sometimes just to listen. I wish I could call like he does. But you got to remember, he started the same place we all started. Patty started the same place, you know, right on down the line. So I want you to be the fear factor there, but don't let it control you. Learn what you need to learn. Get up there. Be ready to do it. And the next thing I would say would get to a good caller school. I didn't do this. I went to a caller. He helped me, took me under my wing, or under his wing, I should say. He gave me some homework to do, but I didn't have an official calling school. That opened up a whole bunch of new avenues. I just felt I didn't have to go. You know, I thought I was better than the rest of the callers that was out there. I didn't need to go. I mean, I'd done a lot of research. I'd done it the hard way. I come up the hard way. School of hard knocks, you know. So get on that caller school. These are the pitfalls I'm talking about to help you avoid it. It's the best, what, $1,000, I guess you have flight, everything getting involved, you know. It's the best $1,000 you can ever spend. And besides that, it's all income tax deductible. It's all income tax deductible. So get you. Then when you reach that point out of that school, I didn't do this. I fell into the trap of reading. When I came out of that school, I was still scared. I hung on to that blanket. And I fell into that trap of reading. Guys, I'm going to tell you, that's the hardest thing in the world for me to break. And I finally come up with a method after talking to several callers how to do this. And every one of them told me the same thing until I ran into this one guy and one lady. She was involved too. I was scared to take that first step on that stage without my security blanket, my paper laying there. I laid it down so that I could read it. I'm talking large print so that I did not fail, so that I could see it through my bifocals. And there's really nothing wrong with it. But I want to caution you, don't fall into the trap that I did. So finally, he convinced me to do one tip in my mind. Take your reading material with you. But one tip, one night, force yourself to put it away and go right back to there. And you know, 4 or 5 dances, it started breaking that wall down, one brick at a time. One brick at a time. It's a very hard habit to break, to start reading. And I still do it. If I go to a certain club that I feel a little intimidated, I'll say that tip or maybe the 5th or 6th tip that I do, but I still try to do one tip a night to get away from that. So don't fall into that. Whew. How we doing, Mike?
Doing good, Bob.
Now, here comes a big one. You finally done all this stuff we talked about. And you get that first phone call. And it's Club XYZ. Said, we want to book you. Number one, you sit and you say, what do I charge? Something you never thought about. You get that call. So you say, well, you can't ask him what the other guy's charging because now she knows that you don't know what you're doing. So you come up with a figure, and sure enough, you just undercut him by $75. Now, is he going to be mad at you? So what I'm saying, get you a figure that you feel that you're comfortable with that club. And there's only one way you can learn a little bit about those clubs, is to get out and dance. Find out how many people are attending their dances. So when Club XYZ calls you, you now know that they're drawing 4 squares, 9 squares, 50 squares. Well, that was 12 years ago, or 50 years ago, I guess. You know, good old days, good old days. So you've got some kind of an idea. You know, you don't want to be way above Mike, you know, because we haven't got that quality yet. But you don't want to be way down below him to make him look bad. So you can kind of strike that middle zone there. So you finally landed a contract. Yes, sir.
Wait a second. Let's put this question on the microphone. That's one thing I should make sure that John, you want to move this around?
Sure. Mike, could you do me a favor? I forgot to do something. I hate to do this. Might not do this to a moderator, with the panel, hand out the paperwork. I forgot to do that. Or you want me to?
Actually, I think most of you have got the paper information. If you haven't, come on up here and pick up some of this information that's on the front table. All this information are handouts that both Bob and Patty have provided, and there's some good information up here. And as we are going through today, we'll probably allude to these different handouts, and there's some great information up in here. So if you don't already have a library or have not begun a file system for caller education for different subjects, do so. It's the best thing to begin your library for caller material, because it's a journey. Education in calling is a journey, and when you have that as part of your library, you'll find that maybe you're not ready for everything all at one time, but have it there as a resource. And occasionally you'll find that all of a sudden the light clicks on because you're ready to go. So back to Bob. We got a question back there. John Shanks is going to run the microphone around for us. Thanks.
Okay. Brent Lively in Rialto, California. I've been calling 5 years. One of the problems I came up with immediately on contracts, due to the fact that I had already been dancing many years before I ever started calling, was underpricing myself. And so I had to, talk to a couple of people around me, my different caller friends, find out what they're pricing. I made sure I did not go above what they, were charging. I stayed, below them. But the best thing I found out for clubs in our area, down in San Bernardino, California area, is after calling the length of time I've called now, I go and see what the club is doing, how many squares they're getting normally, or I just ask them, how many squares do you normally get? What my normal attitude is I add 1 square to what they say they normally get, and I figure my price at that. That way, that gives them the incentive to invite people to their dance. Because if you don't give them incentive, and you're new, they're not going to invite anybody. So you need to give them that incentive by making your price just a hair higher than their normal amount that they get, and then they'll bring people out and say, hey, we got a new caller, why don't you come hear him? And it has helped me. It made it where I was able to progress a lot quicker. So, like I say, we do have a lot of good callers in our area, so I did have to come up real quickly with a way to work that out. So it worked out real fine for me.
That was, while you're on that subject, that was one of the hardest things I had to go through. The caller I was working with came up to me and said, Bob, you're at a point that you're going to have to raise your price. Well, I was fearful of that because I've never went to a caller school, and nobody ever told me that I'm going to have to face that of raising my price. And he said, if you raise your price, you'll find out the bookings will increase. Now, we're not talking about a $100 increase. We're talking a modest increase. And sure enough, I seen it. I guess they figured, he told me that they thought that I would be more professional if I charged a little more. That's well put. So, and it did, but that's a hard concept when you're sitting there and you're weighing this all out. Do I make this adjustment or do I not? And there are a lot of adjustments that we have to make. So, but to get back on where I was talking out there, when you get that first one and you walk in that hall, this was the hardest thing for me. And I was so proud. I walked in with my Hilton stuff, all ready to go. You know, my yak stacks is all shined up, you know. The turntable's nice and clean. There's no dust on it, you know. Just brand new. Boy, I mean, the dancers met me at the door because a lot of them knew me. And I got my equipment all set up, and I'm just ready to go, you know, and it's 15 minutes to 8. The butterflies is going. I said, where's the bathroom? I got to go to the bathroom. So I take off and I go to the bathroom. And now the president of the club comes up and says, hi, I'm President XYZ. I want to tell you, since we booked you, the new dancers are going to be here tonight. We've got 2 squares of them showing up. Well, how far are they along? Of what week? Well, I don't know what week they are, so they would, I think they were doing something, a teacup crossover or something like that, you know. And you know, you try to find this out. Then he hits you with, at 9:30 we break for supper, but we don't want you to call. So just kind of break it out for supper. And then that's when we'll do the anniversaries. And then sometimes we also do the birthdays. Do you have the national anthem? We want to do that for Veterans Day. Now everything that I just prepared for to go to that dance with all my butterflies, I haven't been able to go to the bathroom yet. And it's now 5 minutes to 8. And the dance starts at 8 o'clock. You know, have you ever been there? That is one whale of a scenario, guys. Now, I mean, the sweat's dripping, and I got a cowboy hat on, and my shirt is just dotted, and it's a black shirt, you know, all the little dots. And they say, are you nervous, Bob? No. What I'm getting at, guys, take you a piece of paper. It's this simple. A notebook, a big one. Write it down. When that president talked to you, write down the anniversary. I walked away from that dance that night, and I forgot the birthdays and the anniversaries. They didn't say a word after the dance. Not a word. And I felt that high. Because some of my friends were there for my anniversary. I called the dance. They came on their anniversary. I didn't even acknowledge it. They went to the club president and talked to him, and he said, well, I told the caller. Going home that night, riding in the back seat, it was my anniversary couple. Guys, write it down. It's just fantastic. Your memory goes. And you know that first tip today, still the butterflies go. I've been doing it, 17, 19 years. And when the butterflies leave, guys, you're in trouble. Now your head's getting way out here. When the butterflies leave you totally. Now, be honest, Mike. Honest. Are they there occasionally? Thank you.
Definitely. I think Bob's absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with nervousness and having an edge. That edge just makes it a little more exciting for you, and it also means that you're ready. You're ready and challenged. And Bob's scenario about all this stuff that comes down on you at a dance, think of it just like water off a duck's back. You know, let it. I mean, if you let it penetrate you, you're going to be in trouble. Just take it in, and as Bob said, make some notes, write things down. When somebody comes up and makes a request, great, write it down. I don't know how many times that just goes out my mind. You meet somebody else talking to you afterwards or whatever, so write it down. He's absolutely right.
Then, now here comes the big one. No, I've already got that. I've already left the dance. I've already rode home, you know. So finally the club called me and said, well, Bob, why don't you come down and teach a lesson class? Oh, man, this is what I've been waiting for. Because everybody said, this is where you're going to learn to call. When you teach that first lesson class. So, you know, just like my normal bullheadedness that I was, you know, I don't need nothing. So I got the old caller notes that I did have out in Minnesota, whatever they were way back there. I think some of Sam Dunn gave me. So I started looking around in there and got my first people in there. I had no more idea than the man in the moon. I could do a scoot back myself with my wife. Well, if I was facing in. Right. And, but I managed through, got my class going. A lot of work, guys. 10 times the work. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, somebody in this world of square dance has got to have some information on teaching. But again, now, I haven't gone to no caller school. So I finally, through the many trials and tribulations, I find a wonderful book. Right down here, it says one of the new caller start kit. I'm telling you guys, it's fantastic. I still use today, after all the classes, my caller teacher manual that I got out of American Square Dance. The brown one, I don't know how many of you have it. I still have that. Every lesson class, I have a portable musical stand that you tear down, fold up, put in your briefcase. I unfold that. That is out. That is my Bible. If I'm chastised by any angel that's there, I have my Bible right there. And don't tell me it don't happen, guys. I know. And these dancers are not dumb today. They're not. They're doing their homework. They got a library that's unbelievable. Lady came up to me and said, you cannot teach relay to Ducey from girls on the end. It just can't be done. Well, that's where the politics is going to come in. You got to be cool. But you've got your Bible there. But if you don't have that with you, you're in trouble. Because now you've got to convince her out of your head. You ever try to convince a lady out of her head? It's impossible. No, but my point being, get this information that's out there. CALLERLAB has it, the new caller teacher manual. I got away from it. Then after let me back up a little bit. I'd done that for years. Then I thought, well, I'm good enough. I know how to do a relay to Ducey. They're all facing in. They're facing out. I know where the outers go, the inners go. I know all this stuff. I can just do this. Why get all that stuff out? But I noticed one thing started happening. My retention of the dancers was gone, dropping. Just one or two here, 3 or 4 there. They just weren't coming back. So I thought, well, it's just dancers. It's a dancer problem. Still, I haven't accepted the problem of myself. So I'm sitting down there and I'm talking to my wife about it. And I said, I'm going to get my caller teacher manual back out of this next class. And I haven't lost. I have trouble getting them in the door. But once I get them in the door, I don't lose them very often. My dancers retain. But I use that Bible. It is right there. And the print is that big. It's highlighted. I wish I should have brought it because it's everything I use in there, magic marker, I highlight it. This is what you got to do. They see me. They see me doing this. I'm not ashamed of it. Because they walk away and they can dance and they stay. So get you your information. CALLERLAB's got a bunch of it. And so much of it on the website is free. Go to CALLERLAB website. All the information is all free. The zeros, that's where I'm going to now. I'm coming into the zeros. That was another thing, when I finally went to my caller school, they taught me get ins, middle breaks, get outs, all this stuff, set up these modules, all these zeros, these formations, these little guys, little nose pointed out, and 8 chain through positions and all this stuff, It was fantastic. But all that stuff finally come around. Finally come around after all those years. So that's just some of the pitfalls guys to avoid. So how many of you have got some pitfalls that you guys have run into? Any that you want to? Here we go. Yeah. So get that information there. It is really, really worth it. Where's the mic at? This gentleman right here. Oh, I thought you wanted to share that with us. Yep. So, but the main thing is, once I got it all down and went back, regrouped everything, went to my caller school, it all came. Now I've had a wonderful, wonderful time. I'm here at CALLERLAB. It's just fantastic. Don't give it up, guys. Sometimes you feel like you just pull your hair out and walk away from it, but don't do that. We need every one of these callers that we can get. Okay? Any other questions? Boy, we must have covered it all.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah, anytime you have any questions, just wave a hand around. And actually, John, you want to run a mic back there for just a minute? Okay.
Yeah, Mike Hall from Howard, Ohio. I heard through the grapevine that Bob's been talking about caller school. Heard through the grapevine they might possibly try and put a caller school together before Louisville.
There has been talk of that. The problem that we have, guys, is that CALLERLAB since its inception has tried very hard not to compete with its own members. And there's an awful lot of our members, and some are non-members, that teach caller schools that, dependent upon where that school is, may conflict at the same time with existing caller schools that are already scheduled. So when CALLERLAB does it, now initially the idea was let's put a caller school out there, let's raise some money for the foundation. Our initial reaction that we had from several of our members and non-members that were teaching caller schools was, why are you putting this school right on top of me? And so politically, we had some issues with that. It didn't turn out to be the big fundraiser for the foundation that they thought it should be or would be or whatever. The bottom line is that there are a lot of good caller schools out there. It would be wonderful to combine them with a national convention, but it's also competing with our members. So I don't know of any plans to have one in Louisville. John, you want to run that mic?
Hi, Bo Byerly from North Carolina. Just wanted to mention, since we were on the subject here, and you said you were from Ohio, every August, first week in August, Tony Oxendine puts on a caller school in Charlotte, North Carolina, right after he has a big festival down there. And that school offers a $250 scholarship. All you have to do is ask for it. So, I mean, it's an easy $250 for you. It'll pay for your gas to drive down to North Carolina. And there's plenty of hotels nearby that are fairly cheap.
You'll know that there's an awful lot of caller schools that now are occurring during the summertime. It's a very popular time for caller schools. There are caller schools all over the country. There are scholarships available from CALLERLAB, from Hanhurst Tape and Record Service. There is money out there, and you just have to apply for it. So contact the CALLERLAB office, or you can do it by email to CALLERLAB. Say, can I get some information? American Square Dance Magazine is another place. How many of you get American Square Dance Magazine? Have a subscription? Good. Everybody should have a subscription to this magazine. How many of you have a subscription to a note service? Some note service. Everyone should have a subscription, at least one, to a monthly note service. It's fairly inexpensive, between 20 and 30 bucks. When that information comes across your desk each month, it'll charge your batteries up for another 30 days. And if you can't use all the information right then, if you use one thing out of that note service, you'll have benefited. It's part of being a caller. It's continuing education, and it's something to charge up your batteries. Remember, that's just a real key, because if you have a passion for what you're doing, that passion comes across to the dancers. If you have a passion for teaching, that passion comes across. It is contagious. It happens even in square dance clubs. If you have a square dance president or a vice president or somebody in the club that's got that passion and got that energy, that club is moving upward. In those clubs that don't have or lack that passion, everybody's too tired, the energy level goes down and the fun level goes down. So have the passion for what you're doing, and some of the things that you can do to keep that passion is, again, subscribe to American Square Dance Magazine and any other local magazines in your area. So you have that information. You become an information source when you become a caller. People will ask you questions about different things. The more information you have, or the more resources you have to get those answers to those people, the better off square dancing is and the better off you'll be. Listen, our next panelist, Patty Greene, she lives in Salem, New Hampshire, and with her husband, Steve. And she began calling in 1995. She's taught at least one class or workshop yearly since that 1996. She currently teaches for 2 clubs in New Hampshire and calls regularly throughout the New England for one-night dance parties, the New England Convention, and regular dances. She's recorded on Royal Records, and she has been the secretary of the Tri-State Callers Association since 1996. That's how you get to be a member. Anyway, she's currently the vice chairman of the New England Council of Callers, and by day she owns PKG Design Works. What's the K stand for? Kennedy? Oh, maiden name. Very good. Ooh. So Patty Kennedy Greene. Anyway, Design Works, and which is a web development and graphic design services. She's joined CALLERLAB in 1998. She's attended a couple conventions and mini labs. She served on a new caller panel before. How about a nice hand for Patty Greene?
Thanks, Mike. You did everything I was going to do. So no, I'm going to take a different tact. The one thing that I felt lacking when I first started calling is a lot of the, you get how to resolve a square, what modules are, all that stuff, but you don't really get a lot of the little goofy day-by-day things, like the business end, carry a 3-hole prong adapter in your car, in your record case, just in case you get somewhere and there's, if you can't plug your Hilton in, you're in trouble. let's face it, because I've forgotten my power cord for my Hilton, and luckily somebody's lived close by and I could use a computer, power cord thing. So I thought I would just address a couple of things on this handout, just some little tips and tricks that maybe you didn't think about or maybe need to be brought to your attention. I'm really big on ethics and breaking into the activity in an appropriate way so that you retain some professionalism, and there's nothing worse than being a new caller. I was a new caller and I was a woman, and in New England there were not very many women, and I had to be very careful and very aware of my image, and I don't mean image like how I dressed or anything like that, but my professional image and what people thought of me, because if I didn't take care of that, there's no way they were going to take a chance and hire me. Let's face it. If you're a new caller, it's very difficult to break in because you're an unknown. Are they going to embarrass the club? Are they going to be professional? Are they going to be inappropriate over the microphone? Are they going to smell when they show up? And, just really, so I'm very aware of that. I had a question, how do you break into an activity? I know Beth is trying to reinvent herself right now. And join a local calls association is very important. That's where you network. That's where you prove that you are serious, well, not so much serious, but that you're willing to do the work to become a caller. Instead of, these days, you can't just be a hotshot, know-it-all, you just set up a plus workshop and 300 people show up. Because there's, at least in the New England area, the clubs are folding. There's not that many clubs. There's not that many dancers. We have to start from scratch again, so I can't just say I'm a caller, put out a shingle, and there's so many dancers that they're looking for someplace to go that they'll show up anywhere. And I know a lot of guys in our area started that way, and now they're having trouble because they can't call mainstream. You got to start with the foundations. Be willing to pay your dues with some sweat equity. Volunteer at festivals. Volunteering is not a bad word. Pricing yourself is a very difficult thing, but if you volunteer, that one tip, everybody's got one tip they can do. One singing call, two singing calls that you do really well, and people might come out of curiosity to hear you. They see your name at a festival. Oh, never heard of Patty Greene before. Oh, didn't we used to dance with her? That's what I got a lot. Well, let's go see what she can do. And they expect, they come in, some of them come in with that, well, we know her, she's going to, and some people come in, oh, let's see what she can, let's see what she can do. And if you surprise them and your name is continually seen on some of these volunteer things, they'll know that you have an investment in them as a dance community. And you don't just want to take, it's give and take. Carry your best singing calls and a microphone to a dance, any dance you go to. More oftentimes than not, I'm the one driving because I always keep my equipment in the back of the car. But if I get to a dance and I'm a new caller and it's someplace I've never called before, I will introduce myself to the caller. I won't make a big deal. I won't come up and go, hi, my name's Patty Greene. I'm a really good caller, and put me on the stage, will you? I got my equipment in the car. No, but we have callers in our area that will do that. They will walk in to a dance with their record case. They will put their record case up on the stage. Now, what does that say? You should invite me. I will be doing a tip. But instead, introduce yourself. Hey, I'm Mike. I'm a caller. I'm looking forward to your dance. And then just go about your business and go dancing. He knows you're a caller. It's his dance. If he's not, it's his reputation. If I'm really bad, and I don't mean new bad, I mean I'm just you all know people who are obnoxiously bad, and he puts me up on that stage. When he puts me up on that stage, he has taken a chance on me. And if he doesn't think that I'm capable or I'm ready, he's not going to do it because he's got a whole night programmed out. And he's going to have to do damage control afterwards if you fall on your face. And you're going to have to do damage control afterwards because nobody's going to hire you for that club because they'll remember you as, well, man, they're going to cringe. So just be subtle about the fact that you're a caller. These guys know that you're a new caller. Believe me, everybody knows who the new callers are. And if they think you're ready, they'll ask you to do a tip. And if they ask you to do a tip, like Bob says, make sure it's a good one. And make sure the dancers succeed. Don't impress him and don't impress Bob. Make sure the dancers can dance, because that's what they're going to remember the most. They may not remember your name, but they'll remember that they could dance to you. Oh, we should take a chance on that caller. We really had a good time with them, and I think that's very important. You may very well be great. Comes to you naturally. You can call your way out of anything. You can sing any singing call you want, but you better be humble. Because if you come in with that cocky, hey, I think you should let me call a tip because I'm going to be better than you are, and I'm better than you are, you're going to be working a lot harder than 5 years to break into the business. And also remember, I know what's worked for me is callers and dancers have a life outside of dancing. You have a life outside of dancing. And I know I try very hard not to impress people with my calling skills. Instead, I will introduce myself, or I'll meet a new dancer in a class. And by the end of my class, I'll know something personal about each and every one of them. This one had an operation for cancer. This one's got grandkids. This one does a lot of traveling. This one's got a really big motorhome that they really like. This one, they know my in-laws. But I'll make that personal connection with them to make them feel like a person. And I think square dancing has lost a lot of that. A lot of callers come in and they are the caller. Everybody else is fellowshipping and finding out about somebody, but as a caller, I need to consciously make that connection with them because that's what's going to bring them back. They may enjoy the activity, but if they think, and it's not a fake illusion, I'm genuinely interested in people, but if they think that I'm interested in them, not just as a meal ticket, but as a person, they're going to come back because you've made that personal connection. Getting records. Bob mentioned, you get yourself a couple records. Well, how do you get them? Without spending I spent a lot of money. I have a box of records that, some of them I have come back after 7 years now. I just picked up one the other night, this actually might be something that I could do. Ken Ratucci gave me my first record. I can't remember what it is. Oh, As Fast as You. It's really low. And I'm starting to do it now. I wouldn't have done it when he gave it to me. I don't know why he gave it to me. One of those things. But if you've got a mentor and you've got a caller friend, they probably have a bazillion records. Is that about how many you have, Bob, that you won't admit to? Go over to their house for an afternoon. They got the records. That's how I got a list of records that I thought would be good when I first started. I just went through somebody's record case, and I listened to records, because I didn't have the benefit of all the tape services from way back when, because I had just started. And you can pick up some real gems. You can also pick them up if somebody's retiring. Usually you can get a lot of records cheap, and they may not all be ones that you can do. But you might get the anniversary waltz, you might get happy birthday, and you might get some gems that you could really do, and then you just pass on the ones you don't think you could ever do to another new caller or something. And subscribe to a tape service. A lot of music coming out, the title may look wonderful, but the music itself is not. Let's face it. You've all heard it. Songs that are not recognizable. They may be in a really odd key for you. These days, that's not so much an issue if you've got a computer or a pitch shifter or something like that, because you can shift things around, but a lot of people don't. And you don't want to waste a lot of money, because this is a very expensive hobby. It's a very expensive hobby. And if you waste your money at it, it's not so much of a good thing. Always carry spare batteries. Half my equipment case is batteries in case my portable battery goes out. It's gone out in the middle of a dance before, and if it goes out, you're in a lot of trouble. Always have a 3-prong outlet adapter in your record case, because you may need it sometime. Remember to take it back, but you may need it sometime. I always have an extra extension cord in the back of my car, because these days, halls, the power outlet may be way down in the back, but they always set the caller up on this wall, and you may just they're not going to provide it. They're going to expect that you have everything you have, with the exception of a table, to do this dance. If you can only spend money on one thing to start with, make sure you get a good mic. Not all mics are created equally. At a caller school, a lot of times they'll bring a lot of mics. You can try out a lot of different mics. I'm a woman. Some of the mics are very tinny. I started with a tinny mic. Boy, I'll tell you, I wouldn't hire me. It was absolutely horrendous. You know, I had to find a mic that suited my voice. And make sure that somebody you trust, when you're at a dance, you know, like Bob said, you come in, you got to go to the bathroom, you got to set up your equipment, you want to make sure you meet somebody. Oh, maybe I shouldn't meet anybody. You know, you got all this stuff going on in your mind. And the last thing I think about is how I sound. Luckily, I have Steve. He comes to a lot of my dances, and he'll go to the back of the hall and he'll listen for me. More music, more voice, get a system going. Because I'm not a real good judge of that. Even after all this time, I can't tell. I rely on somebody else. And you're always going to have somebody, once he tells you, whoever you peg, like if I know you and you came with me to the dance, I'm going to ask you, just let me know what it sounds like. Once that's set, you're going to have somebody come up to you and say, I have one old lady, one older woman, every time she's at a dance of mine, she will come up to me after the first tip and say, do you think you could turn it down a little? It's a little loud. Now, she's dancing in front of the speaker, first of all. Move away from the speaker. And if you know that you're okay, you know, if it's just that one person, just walk over to your turntable and pretend like you're turning your knob. That's all they want. They just want the reassurance that you're listening to them, and then she's fine for the night. I haven't changed anything at all. She just wants to see that I'm listening to her and I adjusted down the thing. So make sure somebody checks that, because I'm sure you've been at a dance where you couldn't hear the music, you couldn't hear the voice, and it's just not a pleasant experience because you can't hear and then you don't have a chance of succeeding. What about the business side of your calling? That's just as important, I think, as your craft. When you're starting out, you know, part of it is pricing. Like he said, I still underprice. I had somebody, I got asked to call a dance up in Maine, 4 hours away from me. And, you know, $50, you know, that's not that really. But I thought, you know, I'm just going to tell them what my mileage is going to be. Because it's $150 worth of mileage for me on my income tax. And I told her, I said, I'll come up for you. And what I tend to do is if I don't know the club is I'll say, you know, I'm not sure what you're used to paying your callers. Because some clubs in our area, it runs from like, I do one dance for a club for $65. I don't have a problem with that because I love the people. And for me, that's an investment in my craft. Others are paying like $150, $160. And if I come in, you know, like Bob said, at $100, if that's my standard rate, I just undercut everybody. And yeah, they're going to hire me. I'm a bargain. And so I told her what my mileage was, and they met it. And I'm like, oh. And I'll tell you, when you rise up from charging $25, oh, I'll just take 10. Could you just pay for my gas? Or just give me my toll money, which is how I started. I can't charge for this. Now I'm thinking, oh, I'm standing a little straighter because I'm worth a little bit more in my mind. Somebody thinks that I'm worth that. The first person, whoever upped my rate, my rate got upped because of a dancer who was hiring me. You got to stop charging that. You got to charge a little more, and I stood a little taller. And I came into that dance because my expectation was a little higher. Theirs wasn't, mine was. So I wasn't given a $10 dance, which I never really gave, but I knew now that I was worth giving. You know, like you said, you underprice yourself or overprice yourself.
Steve Eglin from Esterville. How about your own club dance? I know my club dance, I told them what my price was. Well, if you belong to this club, that's a little high for that. How do you guys handle that? Might reduce my rate, and then I'll say I want 5 over 8. You know, we do a lot of X amount over squares. I have a couple clubs that I called for a really long time, and when they hired me for a dance, I really charged hardly anything because that's what they expected of me. And, you know, that's kind of a catch-22. If they think that's all you're worth, I would probably speak to them. If I know for a fact that they're paying everybody else $125, for example, they want to pay me $50, that's unacceptable to me because I'm the one putting in the equity
for the workshop, and I'm there for them to fill out. I don't know what these guys do.
One way I've approached it, of course, I run my square dance strictly as a business, all income taxes. I'd never made any money calling square dance, but it offset my city job that I had. My goal was to eliminate the tax that I made at the city of Troy through my calling, and I had a good accountant and he'd done it. And he explained it to me this way. The club approached me and they said, well, you know, you should be able to put something into this club. I said, all right, fine. I'll tell you what. I charge $100. If we don't have 5 squares, I'll keep your $100 and give you a $50 check back. Now I have made $50. At the end of the year, I now have a dollar for dollar donation back to the club. I've just got my other $50, but it's the end of the year, and the president is very happy. Now, go to a club somewhere that she was talking about. You go into this new club. You don't know what to expect. You already quoted them $125 to come do the dance. You shouldn't be stupid when they walk in there and there's only 2 squares there, and you look at the hall and say, well, this is about $150 a night hall. I can tell because that's what they charge me when I rent them. Let's see. We've got ladies brought in the food here. We've got tickets, you know. So, but don't make no big deal. Don't expect no splash. Go to the treasurer. Do this very nonchalantly. Just say, ma'am, write me a receipt out for $50. I'll give you $50 cash. I'll keep your $100 check. I have a cash flow of that $100 until I get home. You see what I'm saying? So everything's covered. There's ways to work it.
There are things you can do and say. I think what's important when you go to price yourself is that you talk to the other callers in your area. Find out what's the normal fee. What should I ask them? What should I charge? From hearing you and from knowing how far you have to drive, because this is an issue. When someone calls and they're 4 hours away and you're thinking, your wheels are turning, you can say, my normal fee is for a 4-hour drive. That's 8 hours, round trip plus the 3-hour dance. So at the same time you're cranking the wheels in there and you're thinking about this. You should kind of think about this ahead of time too, because and lay it out, write it down, so you have it down for 2005, 2006, 2007, because prices are going up, gas is going up. You can say my normal fee is a minimum of say $175 or $150, $200, whatever it is, your minimum, or you can say, $3 per square over 8, or you can say, or 50%, or whatever it normally is. That's my normal fee. But I'm willing to work with you. I'm willing to work with you is a good thing to say, because the bottom line is this: we're a small club. And there's some clubs that are 4 hours away. They can only afford $50. If you want to get up there and do that dance, and you can do that dance, you can help them out, that's fine. If you're struggling with your schedule, or your kids got different issues in your time, you can say, maybe it would be better for you in being a small club to book callers closer to your area. I know I work with clubs in my area because it's only a half an hour drive or 10-minute drive to the club, and for me there's not that much time investment to drive there, and they understand that. They really understand the fact that that they should get somebody closer, because the economics of their club only give them so much to pay for their caller. You can work with them. The other thing you can do is but I would like to guarantee you a no loss. Put a no loss clause in my contract, meaning that if it's pouring down rain and you get there and Bob says there's 2 squares, you realize they got a $150 rent on the hall, you can walk back to the treasurer and right at that point say, listen, I know you're going to take a dive on this one. Let's just work something out so you don't take a loss, or let's just cover my gas expenses or something. They will appreciate that no-in. They will remember you no-in and they will hire you again because you work with them. It happens to everybody. I don't care who you are. From the caller that's been, from a Flippo and a Bauer to anybody, you walk into a hall and that sometimes is an issue. There's nobody there, and so work with them. Those are some of the things you can do. I think the best thing is my normal fee is, but I'm willing to work with you, or I can guarantee you a no loss. Those are things that you can use to help them, and at the same time it'll come back to you tenfold. Patty, you want to continue?
One of my sticklers is all the printed material that comes out from your hand, your computer, your whatever. As a new caller, you have to present an illusion that you are better than you are. Even as a caller for a lot of time, you need to be a step above in all your communication. If you're doing business cards, make sure they're not. These days, there's no excuse for the mimeograph. Something that looks like it's been done in 3,000 years. Doesn't have to be fancy. Every computer, you're able to do a professional-looking business card. You can get them printed up pretty cheap if it's something permanent. I do mine short run. I just started getting brave enough to put my picture on it. I mean, you laugh, but that's a big step. I didn't necessarily want people to remember who I was, and now I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe they don't know who I am, but maybe they know my face. And I do short runs because information changes. If you're sending out a letter to somebody, check for typos. Be consistent. Make sure everything's spelled correctly. Make sure you're using good grammar. A lot of people do mail by email. If you're going to do email, get a permanent email address. Even if it's just one that not going to use for anything but calling. Even if it's a Juno account, AOL, Yahoo, something that you can put on a card that if Comcast gets bought again by somebody else, you don't have to go Media One, ATTBI, Comcast, because what happens is, and I know this for a fact, is I give out my business cards. I do a flyer. Here's where I'm going to be. A lot of times I'll say I don't have a business card, and I'll give out my flyer instead. It's got my contact information on it. What I'm doing is I'm saying, in my back of my mind, maybe they'll show up someplace else that I am. I'm sorry, I'm out of business cards, but would you like a flyer? My contact information is on the bottom. Well, they may file that. They may take that back to their club. And a couple of years down the road, in our area, they book 2-3 years out. They're starting to book for the next year. Somebody's got my business card, and if it was a Media One account that was on that business card, they're never going to be able to find me because a lot of them won't do the extra step to go online or ask around or look in a local directory. But everything that comes out needs to be professional. If you're doing email communication, I get dates now, requests for bookings by email, and I enjoy it because I don't have to make that cost decision on the phone. I can look up where they are and see how far away they are and do a little research on the club. Respond in a timely manner. Use good grammar in your email. Make sure that you speak in complete sentences in email. When you're typing in all caps in email, that's screaming at people. Email etiquette says you should save the all caps. So you're mad at me already because all your emails are.
I put down the bottom on my shelf.
Oh, did you? That must not have come through. No, but that's all things that you don't know what's going to trick somebody to think twice about hiring you. Keep track of your expenses and income. Now, it may not be a business for you, but eventually it may be. You can write off mileage, you can write off travel, you can write off ink cartridges if you're printing off business cards, you can write off the business card paper if you're printing your own business cards. My accountant has a field day with me. I write off tons of miles. Hey, it's a write-off for me. It helps reduce my tax burden, and some years I make money, some years I don't. Most years I break even. Like you said, we use my calling for traveling, so I can write off trips. It's legitimate. I'm not pulling anything on anybody, but it's taken us places that we haven't been for a long time. That's okay. We have an IRS guy down three doors down too. Yeah. He's an IRS. Oh, so how come my accountant won't let me write off liposuction and plastic surgery as a costume expense? We'll have to chat later to get around that. Yes.
Brent again from Rialto. You brought up a very good point about the business cards and so forth. I probably had a little edge over you guys because I was in an area where we had a lot of callers, but I also was able to get a lot of time, donating time through Progressive Squares, all kinds of things. But you brought up two good points I just wanted to go a little further on, and I know you'll go further on them too once I say it. Business cards. I printed mine off the computer, and I'm pretty decent with a computer. But I'll tell you what, the minute I went out and bought business cards, paid that couple extra dollars extra for the professional look, better than my computer does, tell you, things really started to boost a lot. People took a quicker look at me and said, whoa, you really mean business now, you know. So number one is don't be afraid to spend a couple extra dollars. And in our area, a lot of the clubs I do out in the fringes, they don't know what a computer is. You know, I mean, they really don't. They don't care. So I always write my, I said, do you want my email address? I'll give it to you. I'll write it on the bottom. But I said, the most important thing here is my phone number. You can reach me, leave a message, you know, because that impresses them. So you got to look at your area, where you're going and where you're handing out the cards too, okay, in that area. And then the second area I wanted to touch that you talked about was carrying a record or two with you and so forth. As a new caller, I found the best thing that worked for me was I always carried at least 4 records, 5 records that I knew I could handle, and I was prepared. I was always there early because you just never know when traffic's going to hang somebody up. They're going to have a flat tire or something else, and you're going to have that moment in the sun to come in, save the club, and I'll tell you, boy, you have just made a lot of points when you saved that club, when they got somebody to dance to. And even if you had a rough night and you haven't done really good, the fact that you saved them just tickles them pink, you know. And so I know you've run into that too. I can tell already by the way you're smiling. And so it's these little things, like you say, that do make a difference. And you also said make sure you bring your connectors. I made the mistake one time of not having an 1/8-inch connector. And that actually almost cost me a real problem because I came in, the caller didn't show up. I had everything I needed except for an 1/8-inch connector. I had every other connector in the world. So that night, after I got done, I was able to make it through that by doing a different way. But that night, when I got done, I went over to Radio Shack and bought an 1/8-inch connector. You know, it's good to keep those little things with you just enough to take care of any need, and the clubs will love you, and it will make a difference in how far you go, how quick, and everything. So just a hint, what's worked for me.
Good point. The one last thing I want to say about keeping track of your income and your expenses is go out to Office Depot or whatever, and if you're not sure how to do this, just get a 13-column, you know, sheet where you can write down the date, you can write down the event, the expense, and then get the columns out and and put out your categories: your gas, your automobile, your miles, your equipment, your office supplies, your dues, books, subscriptions, your hotel, your airfare, just all this stuff. Write it all out. Get it a whole column and put it all out there, and so you can keep track of it. Every night when you come home, save those receipts and sit them down and write on the receipts what it is, exactly what happened there, because when you have to go back and look through things, it's a lot easier if you just have it down. Be legitimate, put it out there, and start early. Do it from the very start. As far as your mileage is, I'd get a thing and keep track of your miles. You have to go from X to X. So much of what we do is based upon how far we got to drive. If you're just driving down into the streets of the school and teaching every once a week, that's one thing. But if you're driving, 300, 400 miles someplace, and you have to charge accordingly, and that's all part of the package. So keep track of that. Work with your accountant. And
Bo Byerly from North Carolina. I just want to expand on that. If you just get a separate day timer that you dedicate to your square dance activities, put all of your information in that. It'll show you where you were at, what you earned that night, how far you drove, anything else that might go along with it, and of course, save your receipts if you have a hotel or something.
Absolutely.
Is that acceptable?
Absolutely.
I've always been told it's acceptable. Yeah. But no, everything's in one place. Yeah. But if you just dedicate that to your square dance activities alone, then you've got everything in one place, and then you're not having to try and keep things together.
I know this sounds strange, but I heard probably about 15 years ago at a CALLERLAB convention, Jim Mayo talk about this, what he does, and I think it's really apropos that every time you go to a dance, if you're going to a dance and you do a guest tip, write down on a piece of paper or in a log exactly what the dance was, who the round dance tour was. Write down the names of as many people that you can remember that you met at that dance. Write their names down, John and Pat Smith and Bill and something or other, but write it down. Write down what you wore to the dance. If you have a partner, write down what your partner wore to the dance. If you called a guest tip, write down what that guest tip was. If you're doing the dance, write down all the scene calls you did to the dance. If you did particular get-ins and get-outs and little cutesy stuff, if you had 2 couple squares, write that stuff down. the reason why is because when you go back to that same place 3 months down the line and you did a guest tip, are you going to do the same singing call? Are you going to remember what singing call you did at that time? Are you going to remember that you wore the same blue shirt? I was in New Orleans one year and I called the festival. I came back the next year and Saturday night I wore the same shirt. It was my favorite shirt. I love this shirt. Guy looks at me and he says, "That's the same shirt you wore last year." I thought, how did he know that? You know, I mean, get a life, you know. But the bottom line was he knew that. He thought that maybe that much less of me. That I had one good shirt that I could wear. You know, write that stuff down. It can't hurt, and especially when you go back to an area to do another dance. You've written down all the singing calls you did. Sure, you might want to do some of those again. You might have a request to do some of those again. But the bottom line is you'll know to rotate a few things out. If you're doing the same cutesy little things here and there, you got a chance to vary that. I have records that go back. I just recently did the festival 2 weeks ago, and I had done the festival back in 1999. I went back and I saw what I wore at that time. I saw what I called. Some of those singing calls have rotated back into my box. They've been out of my box for a while. Some of them have been back in. It allowed me to kind of plan my program and eliminate some of those repeats. I had some requests to do some of the stuff that I did back then. I luckily have that stuff with me. But the bottom line is that'll help you just to expand your horizons and to not be so repetitious. I think sometimes it's more of an issue with us than it is with them, but document those kind of things. It helps.
Yeah, John Shanks, Lancaster, California. One other thing that I would add to maybe some of those notes you're taking, if you're going to a dance and call a tip and your partner is there, get some feedback from them on how it went and write that down as well.
Good show. Good show, John. Very good. Yes. John, bring the mic up.
Yeah, I want to pick up on something that
say your name.
Bob Knopfsinger, Pullman, Washington. I want to pick up on something that Mike mentioned in passing. We don't hear at this convention much about round dance cures. How many of you call at dances or go to dances where half the program is round dancing? Could I see a show of hands? And many of those round dance cuers have more than one club that they cue for, and they'll tell other clubs about you. I got a chance last year to call twice for a club because the round dance cure in my home club, that is where my partner, my wife, and I are members, was also the cure for that club. And then their caller retired. And so all of a sudden, is it okay? Their caller retired, and she recommended me as their caller. So now I'm the caller of that club. The other thing, the local caller associations or regional caller associations, I happen to belong to two, and every meeting they have a workshop where callers can practice things, and cuers teach the round of the month and that sort of thing. And people stay around to dance in those workshops, that is, representatives from those clubs. And they'll see you do a tip there or something. And these tips that you're doing when you visit clubs, not only will that club know what you're like, but they'll be visiting dancers from other clubs. And so I think exposure is important also as a way of making yourself known, and you're going to have your flyers, of course, and your business cards.
Good point. Good point.
I just have one more thing. I think that the most important thing that I think a lot of callers forget about, you know, when you first want to start calling, it's probably because somebody inspired you. You know, you went to a dance, Mike's dance or Bob's dance, and you thought, gee, I'd really like to be just like Mike. Be yourself. I know it's trite and it's cliche. When I first started calling, I wanted to be like Deborah. I'll admit it. Deborah, Carol, Jones, Parnell, Deborah. I wanted to be just like you. And I realized very early on, luckily, that I can't be Deborah. I can't be Mike. You know, there's a couple calls in our area, they'll buy every single record that Randy Doherty records. They want to be just like Randy. But you got to be yourself, because the dancers are going to know that you're trying to be somebody you're not. And I think that these days, you know, there's not very many dances, that dance opportunities are going down. If you want to get hired and you want to be great and important and loved in your community, in this community, you need to be yourself, because they're going to see right through you. If you can't sing, don't sing. Find singing calls that you don't have to sing and do. They're not going to care because they're coming to see you. If you like big band music and you hate country, don't do a lot of country music if you can't get the song in your heart. You can't sell a singing call if it's not something, if it's not a piece of music or a song that you love. So fill your box with music that you enjoy. And if it's all Johnny Cash songs, it's not going to matter, because the dancers are going to see that that's who you are, and they're going to love you, and they're not going to care if they hear Johnny Cash. And if you get hired by a club to do a theme, stretch yourself a little. Pay attention to what the club is doing. If they're doing a Disney night and they've hired you to do a Disney night, don't do Elvis songs. At least throw in a couple Disney songs, because I'll tell you, that will get you hired. I got hired for a club. They were having a 20s night, like a big band night. And I went out of my way. Every piece of music I had related to big band swing. I dressed the part. I went out of my way. They've hired me back every year for their Decades dance and any theme night, because they know I'm going to contribute to their party. I'm going to bring something to that table, even if it's just the music that I do. And you need to be convinced that you're bringing something to the table, because if you're not convinced you're bringing something to the table for that club, they are not going to hire you. Why would they?
Larry McLean, Perry, Oklahoma. He was just talking about the importance of your spouse. I'd like to expand on that. Anytime you do a dance, the dancers will lie to you. They're not going to tell you that you did a real poor job. Other callers will lie to you, trying to build you up, you know. But once you get in that car and go home, your spouse is the one that's going to tell you how you really did. Another thing is, if you go to a college school, take your spouse, because he or she is going to catch a lot of things that you didn't catch, and they will point out what you learned at color school that you've forgotten. And one other thing is, usually I quit square dance calling on the average of 1 or 2 times a week. And my spouse is the one who explains to me, no, you've got to keep going.
You know, just to one more point to add, sometimes your spouse is not your best critic, just doesn't have it in her or his heart to tell you, or can't. And so you find a dancer or find somebody else that you know you can go to, say, how did that go? And you'll find them at all different clubs and all different places, but find somebody that you can confide in that'll tell you the truth. It really is illuminating, because sometimes your spouse is not that person. The one last thing I want to say is that, like Bob had talked about, there are great resources out there that CALLERLAB has. Bob has a great thing on this building success attitudes. A lot of what we do is not only calling, but it's people skills. Buy tapes and information from libraries on dealing with difficult people and all these issues that you're going to be confronted with as a square dance caller. You get a lot of things that come across to you that it's neat to know how to handle. It's a people business as well, and you'll have more fun when you can develop some of those skills than anything else in the world. The other thing is that your voice is a muscle. You have to keep your voice in shape. Keeping yourself in shape is a big part of keeping your voice in shape. We are promoting this activity as a healthy activity. If you can be healthy and promote your own health, you're going to promote your energy as a caller, and you're going to sell this activity a lot farther too. So think about those issues. The one last thing that I want to say is also the CALLERLAB website that Bob said. Go to that website. There are some terrific documents on there on teaching, and there will be more. Hints on teaching. You never can have enough hints on how to present a call in enough different ways to flash that light bulb on in those people's mind. When somebody's not getting something, don't criticize them as being a dumb dancer. Think of yourself. What way can I get across this point? It's me. Bring it back home again and say, there's something, what can I do to present this a little bit better? Find yourself a mentor. Find yourself a fellow caller that you guys can confide in and work together with. It's a lot easier to go through this journey when there's someone you can be working toward and someone that can help you as a mentor, and there's someone you can work with as a friend or as a fellow caller. Remember, we are all callers. I don't care how new you are, how many years you've been in this business, we can all learn from each other. I learn every day from new callers, particularly when we do caller schools. The questions that sometimes you ask as a caller really stops to make another caller that's been calling a long time think. And you see things in different lights. We all learn every day. And we're all part of a family, a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a group here that needs to work together. Be complimentary of your fellow callers. There's no reason for you to criticize people. You can't say something nice, don't say it at all. This is just a way of working toward a fellowship and a joy in this activity that'll bring you rewards beyond your wildest dreams. It's frustrating at times, and I couldn't agree more. There's times you want to quit. But there's also times that the joy of this just carries you in other facets of your life. So enjoy this. How about a nice hand for my panelists, Bob Jones, Patty Greene, John Shanks for carrying the microphone around. I want to wish you the best of luck in this journey. Enjoy the convention, and hope to see you all down the line. Thank you very much for coming out today.